But mate, excited to see what you're doing and where you're going to go and all that's going to happen in the future.
Thanks for having me on Unlaced podcast. It's actually not bad. It's really good, bro. Well done.
Thank you, brother. And we're back, folks. Another episode of the Unlaced podcast. Again, before we start, always just want to thank our subscribers, our listeners, everyone who's sharing around the podcast. It's the way we grow. The heart and soul of the podcast, I tell you. So thank you so much. Gee, today I'm excited. Bruce Djite. How are you, my man?
I didn't think I was that exciting anymore.
Oh, you are.
You're excited, bro. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I tell you why, because you are the director of football at Adelaide United at the age of 34, which is impressive in itself. But for those that know me and know Bruce, we played together.
Once upon a time,
which almost 10 years ago now, which is kind of ridiculous to say, but for a couple of seasons at Adelaide. So we do go way back. We haven't actually caught up in a while, so I'm keen to hear how you're going, bro.
Yeah, it's good to catch up with you.
Yeah, what have you been up to? What's been happening in your world?
Bought a house recently, probably worst time in the history to buy, but...
In Adelaide or Sydney?
Adelaide, yeah.
Hey.
What else has been happening? That's significant, obviously. What else has been happening? Not a great deal. Obviously, the job's busy. It's always busy. Range of things that come up every day. So that's been entertaining. The team's doing well. That's been enjoyable. It's been a good season so far. Family's all good.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
you got two little ones running around. I'm sure they're keeping you busy.
Kids are all good, bro. That's the most important part.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, it's been a good period.
Now you've transitioned into this everyday suit guy kind of life, which was inevitable for you. Anyone knows you playing football. You're always going to end up in a suit one way or another, but...
I think I wore out all my tracksuits.
You did.
I wore nothing but tracksuits.
You were renowned for grey on grey, which is a criminal act in most people's books, but Bruce was the king of turning up into a change room with a grey jumper and grey trackies.
I just wore whatever Nike gave me. They gave me a lot of good stuff.
Plug to Nike. But no, in all seriousness, how are you feeling about the team? So you've been in the role now for almost a couple of years. Obviously came at a time where a lot of change was happening with Adelaide, and you brought in a philosophy that was kind of pre-built a little bit before you, but emphasising youth and obviously good quality culture and people in and around the club. Are you happy with this season? How are you going? Currently third or fourth on the ladder. Must be pretty positive to see that.
Yeah, I think it's been a good season. We're really starting to see the fruits of our labour, if you like. You know, the squad's always been really good. You know, since I came in, the playing group's always been really tight-knit, really good environment. It was important to action a few things, bring the youth team close to the A-League team. Yes, there were youth players coming through, but there was a huge disconnect between the youth and the A-League team. And also, you know, to emphasise the women's game. You know, the women have been fantastic. This year especially, they've had more attention on them. That's been done purposefully. The club really, you know, celebrates and really appreciates all the work that our W League girls do. I think that's been a huge success this year, although they did just miss out on finals. But their broader impact was felt far and wide. So look, I think the football program, obviously Carl Vird's come in, Ross Eloise is there, Eugene's back as well. So
spirit of the club, right?
We've got real good spirit now, and you've been in South Australia, you know, you were in Adelaide for a few years, and, you know, parochial they are down there. So, you know, the philosophy of the club, it's all well and good. And when I came in, you know, very early on, we started talking about young players, building our own, all the rest of it. Still a long way to go. You know, there's still a lot we can improve on. But I think now, I know now, people are starting to realise what we said we were going to do, we're actually actioning. And now people, what I hear, what I see is that it's starting to become somewhat of a destination club.
Definitely. Because I feel, and this is probably a little bit for some fans as well, but looking on the outside, there was probably a few knockers on Adelaide, coming into the season with some of the young players you had, emphasising a lot of young players in the starting 11 for one, right? Because people go, well, kids can't win anything, and if you're going to have kids, you've got to have good experience around them, which I think you've got a really good balance of. But can you break down, I guess, the season thus far for some of the Adelaide faithful and myself, and particularly coming into finals, that promotion of youth, do you actually think that's actually really elevated you guys this year in your performance?
I think you can do both. I don't think you either win the league or develop young players. I think you can definitely do both. You know, anyone who doesn't think so.
Why do you think there's a stigma with that, though? Why do you think there's a perception that you can't do both? Because
I couldn't tell you, man. This game's full of opinions and everyone's an expert, especially when you're not winning. You know, there was a period earlier in the season when we weren't winning and it was, you know, Carl's subs are problematic and we need a midfielder, you know, we need centre-backs, we need strikers, we need this, we need... Everyone's a super coach when you're not winning. You know,
Yeah.
whether you're a player, whether you're a coach, whether you're in sports administration, you know, they're all experts when things aren't going well. But again, my job isn't whether the team wins or loses next weekend or tonight or tomorrow. It's more to be a gatekeeper of the club and to make sure that through all the trials and tribulations, the ups and the downs, that we stay on the same path and we stay on a consistent path, and I see through sort of medium to longer term progress of the club, and I don't think anyone in their right mind, you know, there'll be people who knock it, but no one in their right mind would say that, you know, what we are doing hasn't been relatively successful, and no one would say that we haven't done what we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
Right? And I think with the financial ability that we have, which is much less than a lot of other clubs, everyone knows Adelaide United has been like this since day dot. We always punch above our weight.
Correct.
But I think we're doing fantastically well, and that's down to the staff and the players.
Yeah. I think as well what's impressive is you have a lot of young players in key positions too, like through the spine, from centre-back, midfield, goalkeeper, playing up front. Usually when we've seen young players do well in the A-League in the past is when they're playing out wide or they're getting blooded into a different position to suit a team. But that's what I think's been most impressive about your team. I mean, Stefan Mauk, quite young to be a captain at a club. I also think part of this philosophy stems a little bit maybe from the Spanish influence that came at the club, but also like people that know you made your impact at Adelaide as an 18, 19-year-old. And you know that when you're a kid and you get given opportunity, you can make an impact.
Yeah, that's right. And you speak to people sometimes and they say, you know, don't give them a 3-year deal, don't give them a 4-year deal, they'll get complacent. Well, those people obviously never played the game.
Yeah.
When you're a kid and you get a sniff, then you just want more, you want more, you
Correct.
want more. So...
And you're fearless too.
Exactly. And you need a balance. You know, you can't stack the team with kids and expect them to do everything. You do need some experience. Juande, Harvey Lopez, Jakobsen, Tommy Urich, Goodwin, Halloran. There's
Great
a heap
players.
of experience there, right? So, and that's just a few names. So, you know, I think they complement each other well. I think the kids are doing well. I think we find the balance well between giving them confidence to express themselves and play versus don't let them get a big head. There's still a long way to go. I think between Carl, Eugene and Ross, that balance has been really, really good. I have individual meetings with the players 2 or 3 times a season, just sort of a well-being checkup, you know, not I want to be playing left back, but I'm playing right back. I'm not discussing any of that. That's all coaches deal with. But how can the club be better? How can we make your life better? Everyone understands we're a small club, but we're always very player-centric. You know, how can we make things better? And it's interesting what you hear. Things that you can very quickly change or fix or improve that have a significant impact on them. So I think the balance is right with the people that are there. Ayrton, as a youth team coach, is doing a great job as well. So there's not one person that I'd change. Everyone who's at the club at the moment is doing a phenomenal job, and we'll lose some games, we'll win games, we'll draw some games, but I think for the medium and longer term, we're really setting the pillars in place that can continue to drive this club forward.
It's pretty exciting to watch from the outside, I must say, knowing you personally, seeing you actually progress. What you said in your first press conference to now is, as you said, there's no word of a lie. It is literally the pathway that you said you were going to do for the club. But just going back to your journey in the A-League and in some of our time together, but before I do that, just what's a kind of a contentious issue or a lot of people talk about is the progression of the A-League. in your position, you obviously have good visibility of the A-League as a whole, but having played in it probably over 15 years ago when you started to now, I mean, how do you sort of see how it's grown, how it's shifted, a way that we can improve it to get it to be, a really big league in this country?
Yeah, it's definitely got a lot of room for improvement. I think over the last, 4.5, 5 years maybe, there's obviously been a lot of disruption. Clubs now own and run the league. It used to be under Football Federation Australia. It's not even called Football Federation Australia anymore. It's Football Australia. There's been changes, a lot of changes in the football ecosystem. I think now when I speak to certain individuals who are very influential in our game, Greg O'Rourke, for example, James Johnson and other, obviously different pathways, but both relatively bullish, I would say, and both seeing a great growth trajectory. Women's World Cup coming on the grassroots federation and football ecosystem side is phenomenal for our game. People don't understand how big it is because there probably hasn't been as big a sporting event in Australia ever. Obviously at Sydney Olympics, that was huge. I was in Sydney at the time. Went to the opening ceremony, closing ceremony, and a number of events. That was huge.
Massive.
I think Women's World Cup's going to be bigger than that.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. And it's not just in Sydney, like it's everywhere. It's
That's
Adelaide,
true.
it's Sydney, it's Melbourne, it's Brisbane, it's Auckland, it's across New Zealand. So, the impact's going to be felt just as hard and broader, right? So you got that. Then you got that A-League. The owners of the clubs now run the league. There's a number of initiatives. There's a new TV rights deal that's going to be announced. There's a lot of positive news, I think, that's going to come out in the coming months and hopefully in the coming years. On the back of COVID, I think there's a very unique opportunity for the A-League to really stamp itself on the map. Needs innovation, needs more investment, all these things that we know, needs to better tap into grassroots. That's something that hasn't been done well for a very long period, years. There was a period when it was going well. The A-League was really popular. Average crowds were relatively high. Eyeballs, so people watching the games were relatively high. All that now, that obviously the media landscape started to shift. Streaming's a thing, podcasts are more of a thing. Before it was still Fox Sports and Foxtel and cable and all this sort of stuff. That's shifted. But there's space for strategy, innovation, marketing, and commercialisation of the league that I think now with the owners in charge, I am positive on the outlook.
Now, I want to get back to when we played together, which was for across roughly 2.5 seasons. But do you have any memories of playing together that time at Adelaide? I mean, you've been at Adelaide for a long period of time, but I think you just come back to the club for your second stint.
Yep.
It's a pretty good time to be alive and playing for that club.
Yeah, it was good. So is this when you were there?
Yeah, I just came. So you were there for a season, and then I came in your second season. Cozzy was there. Yeah, no, Cozzy was there.
Still Cozzy?
Yeah, we just got knocked out of the Asian Champions League. Remember the Uzbekistan trips?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Was that John McCain?
John McCain. Yeah.
The injection?
Yes. Yep.
Doc Noble injected.
Doc Noble, that's it, mate. Get him through.
Drop foot.
The Warrior.
Yeah,
do you remember that speech?
Yeah, I did. What did you want to know about?
Just the time then playing under Cozzy, that change room. Like if you think back to that change room, and I obviously didn't play
change room.
very long in professional myself, but a lot of people still talk back today. That change room was special.
It was special, and the clubs had a few special change rooms. That was one of them. Good guys: Cam Watson, John McCain, Nigel Bogard. It was actually really good.
It was.
It was really good. So we were relatively successful that year as well.
Yeah.
Dario Vidicic had a fantastic season.
Great season.
Went off to Switzerland after that, I think.
Yep.
When did we lose in that?
So we lost. So our season we had
Didn't
that
we
Bruce
finish?
is talking about. So when I came, we were in the Asian Champions League finals. So we got through the
Right.
round of 16,
Played Bunyad Core.
and we lost to Bunyad
Bunyad
Core across 2 legs,
Yep.
which was a skeptical Skeptical loss at that because we played away. The experience there was quite unique because we played the second leg away in, is it Bunyad called the city? No, I can't remember. Tashkent, maybe.
Tashkent, Uzbekistan.
Tashkent, yeah. So, and they had people scouting us, training on buildings around the stadium. Do you remember that? Like, you might not remember that, but I just remember them, like, they would do anything to win.
Bro, my career's a blur, man.
Yeah. But no, that season, we had a really good season. We actually, because of Taggy.
We had a good season.
I've spoken of Sean Tagg on the show
we were
before,
fit.
how fit we were.
We were.
But we
Did
went.
those stair runs at Brighton.
Yeah, we went like 10-0. The first few.
Yeah, we were good.
So I think we came fourth in the season and we lost the first final.
To
Brisbane at home.
That's because Cozzy left and stuff, though.
Yeah, Mickey Valkanis came in
that.
for like the last 7-8 games, maybe.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that. Interesting season. Remember he left and he didn't tell us?
Yeah, he just disappeared after the Central Coast game.
we were in the change room like, is training on today?
I do want to ask you about Cozzy because you played with him for a while and anyone knows John Kosmina is quite a character, but for those who never really played under him or got insight to him behind the scenes, he was renowned for after training sessions taking his shoes off, having an apple or coffee in hand and coming over to someone saying, Brucey, you want to come for a walk? And
Walk of death.
Walk of death, because that lap, you were starting, you weren't starting, you were out, you weren't going to play for a month, you come back, boys, I'm in.
All mind games.
So you did a couple of those walks and your analogies were quite funny, but what were they like for you?
What were my analogies? I can't even remember.
Just like that. That was it, man. I wasn't playing. I'm playing. Now I'm starting. Oh, I'm captain. I'm on penalties. I don't know.
John Cosme. He's much more mellow now these days. So worked a bit with him at Fox Sports when I first retired and I'll speak to him or catch up with him whenever I get the chance when we're up in Brisbane. Obviously he knows Carl and Ross really well as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's heaps more mellow now.
That's crazy.
Yeah, before he was could get a bit fiery.
Definitely.
Played a bit of mind games. Good coach though.
Yeah.
Got good results, and then one day just
disappeared.
Abandoned us.
Yeah. Bro, he did sign a good team together, but that period at Adelaide was special because it did take a shift at that club and not disrespecting the coaches before Josep, but Josep came in and really created something special, which was a foundation for why I think Adelaide ended up winning the A-League a few years after.
I think everyone's in agreement.
Yeah. Can you speak of Josep for those that didn't know him and the philosophy he brought and the impact he made on the Adelaide United Football Club?
It was phenomenal. Everything from the philosophy, how I want to play. He moulded the club completely, like the whole football department.
I actually think he changed the A-League in the sense of like the football we played, no one had seen before to that level.
Nah, I disagree. I think Ange was already there doing it at Brisbane.
Do you think the same level?
Postecoglou's Brisbane team. Do you remember how good they were?
Yeah, but they didn't. Exactly. Adelaide didn't have their players, and we were outplaying people.
I know, but I think if we're brutally honest, I think Ange revolutionised the A-League in terms of that possession-based attacking football, free-flowing, and
he had championships to his name too.
that is why the club went and got a Giuseppe.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't compete without
Correct.
having that level of acumen, infiltrating the squad in the way we played. And Giuseppe did that. But his impact was broader than that. He set up a style of play, a philosophy that honestly, at the time, I thought, if the club does this for the next 20 years,
see you later.
I'm going to be the best club in the league consistently.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the lack of financial power and all the other sort of
you can't beat
impediments.
the philosophy.
Like Giuseppe was that good. Great coach, great guy. Put a really good team together, really close bond. Stuck to his principles even when it damaged the team. I was speaking to Eugene the other day about the time when, was it Awa? Fell asleep in the meeting. Did you get a call up that day?
Yeah, I played. I flew to Melbourne.
So Awa, for those,
forgot about
everyone who wasn't in that room that day, pre-game meeting, like 3.5 hours before the game. So last thing you pretty much do before you jump on the bus and head off to the stadium. What we've worked on all week, it was something like, start with McCain, out to Bogard, out to Moroney, Zulo go high, because we want to end up with the ball at Zulo. Something like that. When that happens, the winger comes in and all this sort of stuff. And Awa, God knows why, he was obviously tired, Had a bit of a doze, bit of a nap.
This is current Socceroo Awa as well. He was a young and fiery individual.
Yeah. Had a bit of a nap. He said, Awa, what did I just say? So Awa was at the back, so I couldn't see Awa was sleeping. Anyway, Awa, what did I just say? And he's like, instead of him saying like, I didn't listen or I didn't hear or I wasn't paying attention, he said, oh, you said about going from McCain to Bogard out to Zulo so you can get it out to Moroni or something. Like the complete opposite.
So he tried to, tried to answer.
He guessed.
You, Awa, come on, man.
He said, Awa, that's okay. You won't play today. You won't play today, pal. Call Jake. Get him on the plane.
This is a true story because I actually forgot about this, but I had to fly from Adelaide to Melbourne. We played Melbourne City. Day of the game. Turned up.
Melbourne victory.
Oh, Melbourne victory. That was one of the two. It was at Amy Park. It was a big game.
Victory. And we lost and we could have really done with Awa.
Yeah. I don't even think I played.
But that's what I said about, but he set the standard.
Yeah, he was he was.
Didn't matter if it was myself, Awa, Nigel Bogard, anyone. He would have had the same punishment. Thing. And even though it damaged the team.
Yeah, what can you do? But you know what? There was a lot of growing pains to get to that point with Josep. Do you remember how, the first few months with him, the training was not, I wouldn't say it's bad, but it was very basic. Do the simple things well and starting to build foundation for a methodology that a lot of people who had played at a very high level were like, oh, fuck, I can do this with my eyes closed. But we didn't realize what he was actually trying to do. And on top of that, he was extremely critical of you and your basic skill sets. So like for the first few friendly matches, maybe he started grading people out of 10.
Yeah.
Like we're in school. He's like, Golek, 6 out of 10. Very good. And then me, he's like 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10. I'm like, Joseph, I just scored 2. But, he had his ways.
Like the movements, the passing.
Everything else. It was very deep and it challenged your thinking. But obviously when he left, the principles are in place. A lot of the core group was there and the coach after him, Amor, came in and probably didn't really have to change too much. It was on autopilot in a sense.
Well, kind of, but he did change quite a bit.
Did he? What? Like what?
Like the pressing. We didn't press anymore, remember?
Ah.
You weren't there, but we didn't press anymore. We didn't want to do the high press and all that sort of stuff. So it changed a bit. Giuseppe was very much a coach. Amor was very much a manager. So Giuseppe would tell you the finest of fine details, whereas Guillermo would be like, you should know that. You're a professional footballer. Right. So then we had our trials and tribulations in the early parts of Guillermo Amor's reign.
Okay.
Which we resolved and culminated in winning the championship. But they were relatively different. What Giuseppe was very much heart on the sleeve type. Celebrate the goal with the team.
Run, knee slide.
It was real
Mourinho-esque.
Yeah, it was a bit dramatic at times. Whereas Guillermo was the polar opposite.
Yeah.
He was as cool as ice. He was the Iceman.
Which suited his personality, which suited his CV, because it's like, how can anything here phase him with what he's achieved in his life in Barcelona? He's on the biggest stage in the world.
He was here just
Come on,
guys.
man.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? He's like, at the A-League, I'll dust off that medal when I find it.
Yeah.
But no, actually, there's two things I want to talk about here before we go into your playing career abroad in particular, because you're a well-travelled man. But first is Marcelo Carrusca. What a player he was.
Yeah, superb. I still see him on Thomas on yesterday.
Unbelievable player. One of the probably best players I ever saw. Not that I played for a long period, but just in regards to talent, pure talent.
He was just so good. He never sprinted. Oh, he did in the end. But when he got here, he didn't really sprint. But he just walked past people.
The most perfect left foot you'll ever see.
He's a very good player.
The second thing was, do you know how I met Josep? Have I told you this story?
How you met him?
Met him.
No.
I met him before anyone at the club, bro, before it got announced.
Where?
So after the first season, my first season at Adelaide, we lost in the finals to Brisbane. Mickey Valkanis was coach.
Yep.
And I was playing under him, so I was kind of excited. I'm like, if Mickey sticks around, I'll probably get more game time here because he started giving me a bit of an opportunity.
Yeah.
Anyway, I go on holiday, bro. I'm in Barcelona with my old man. And he's like, hey, Malaga's playing Barca tomorrow. We should go to the game. It's the last game of the season. Barca's won the league.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck yeah, Dad, let's go. So anyway, we get nosebleed seats because there's not many seats left. It's obviously a massive game. Eric Abidal is retiring too, and he obviously had some health issues and ended up coming back and playing and stuff. So we go there anyway. Watching the teams warm up, I'm like, fuck, man. Everyone was there bar Messi, but Iniesta, Xavi, I'm like, oh man, this is unbelievable. I look down, bro. 10 rows in front of me in a 100,000 seat stadium is Michael Petrillo on the phone? And I'm like, Petrillo? Is that Petrillo? I can't be. So I pick up my phone, and for those that don't know, Michael Petrillo was essentially what Bruce is now for Adelaide.
And CEO.
Yeah, and CEO. So he was quite senior. So for him to be there, it's either a holiday or he's moving and shaking something. And with where we were at as a club, he was definitely moving and shaking something because we didn't have a coach at the time. So I called him. I'm like, Petrillo, I'm like, is that you? He goes, Jake. he goes, where are you? I go, I'm at the camp now. I'm like, are you in front of me? He goes, no way. Turns around, it's him. He goes, oh, mate, comes over and talks to me. He goes, look, I'm actually here because I'm about to sign this new coach. So I was like, oh, crazy. Anyway, whatever. Time goes by. The next day, unbelievable game. They win 4 or 5-0. Crown champions, like incredible. Anyway, the night comes. Petrillo calls me. He goes, hey, I spoke to the coach. He wants to pick you up tomorrow and take you to a game. And I'm like, fuck. He's like, are you free? And I'm like, well, now I am. So anyway, Josep picks me up outside the W Hotel in Barcelona on the beach with his agent and says, hey, we're going to go to 2 games today. You're going to come? So go in, meet him. He didn't really have much English. Petrillo was there right. Speaking through. Bro, we went to a game. It was like 3rd division in Spain on this artificial pitch. And he's like, hey, see that guy on the right wing? He goes, I want you to watch him. So I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, you thinking of signing him? He's like, yeah, maybe. We'll see. So after the game, this guy on the right wing was quality, bro. I'm like, this guy, yeah. I'm like, look, I know it's 3rd division, but I'm sure he could do well in the A-League. I feel like the A-League was better than this, but he could do well. Anyway, it was Sergio Thirio.
It was good.
Bro,
really
what a player. Won the championship with Adelaide.
Yeah.
And then after, he took me to Barca B to play Villarreal, which was just insane. So I actually met him that way. So when I went to Adelaide, I'm like, this guy, I had a sense this guy's going to be good.
Yeah, right.
Because his La Masia affiliation.
Fascinating story, actually.
Fascinating. Yeah, bro, in the camp now. What are the chances? But anyway, speaking of abroad and football, now you've a well-travelled man. You played a long time in the A-League for Adelaide across a couple of stints, but you have had stints in Asia and Turkey. And I do want to go into your time when you were playing for Turkey because I feel like that was a really prominent time in your career where you were getting Socceroo recognition and obviously probably your first real experience in Europe.
Yeah.
But what was the Turkish Super League like for you, which obviously at the time and still is a really highly respected league?
It was a good league, man. Really good. Had good players. Roberto Carlos was there, for example.
Wow.
There were a big Aussie contingent there at the time. So...
was Harry Kuehl there at this time for Gala?
Lucas was there for a period. Mila Jednak, Troisi, myself, Petkovic, goalkeeper. So it was just a phenomenal time, you know, with so many Aussies there. Ersin Gullum, who ended up playing for Turkey, but grew up in Melbourne.
He played for Adelaide as well, didn't he?
Played for Adelaide a couple of years ago. So it was just a great time to be in Turkey. The league was really good, really high level. You know, you're talking there's always the big clubs. You know, Galatasaray, Fenerbahce, Besiktas, Trabzonspor was big then. Remains big now, obviously. But yeah, it was a phenomenal experience. Every game was hard. Every training was hard. Really enjoyable. Great experience in terms of, you know, what was I, 20, 21 years old?
Yeah.
Moved to Turkey by myself, Ankara, the capital. It was a fantastic time to be alive.
Yeah.
You know, it was brilliant.
For you, because I know you had a relationship with Harry Kuehl, and you might remember telling me some stuff about this, which I want to ask you just to see if you can remember back to this date. But that was around the time you started getting Socceroo recognition, because obviously the quality of league you were playing in.
I've gone to a lot of camps, played a few games, but I've gone to a lot of camps. But I look back on that time with the national team, it was just so phenomenal because I just caught the end of the last few years of some of those like real
the
supers,
golden era,
golden
right?
generation.
Yeah.
Right. I learned so much from them, and you know, just watching them, being able to train with them. For me, you know, I'd go to camps, would never get on for the qualifier game, but you know, you're in camp for 2 weeks with these guys.
So you're referencing roughly the squad that went to the 06 World Cup, got through the group stage.
Yeah,
Tim Cahill's, Growlers, Brescianos,
That's right.
Vidukas, etc.
Yeah, so a few had stopped. I think Popovic had stopped. Skoko had finished.
Yeah, there were a few of the older ones.
There were a few that had stopped, but you know, John Aloisi was still there. Like you said, Dukes, Harry, Emo, Lucas.
What did you learn from them?
Bresh.
Like when you
Oh,
when you mention,
just how far off I was from being a potential Premier League player.
They were that good.
Man.
That's insane.
And you got to think, like, I remember seeing Dukes. He was so good. Like, unbelievable.
Wow.
Like, man, this guy is so good. Can you imagine how good, like, Anelka and Kanu are?
Yeah, right. The top strikers in the Premier League.
Clivert and stuff.
Oh, man, it's scary.
I could not. I was just like they're just unbelievable. Because Dukes is unbelievable. He had a really good season at Middlesbrough.
Yep.
Just gone to Newcastle United. Like, he was.
Is that the peak of his powers, roughly around there?
He was really good.
Yeah.
But like, he wasn't at Barca or Real or like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it, bro.
I was just blown away. I'm like, but he's so good. Like,
But this is what
how can you be better than this?
this is what fascinates me though
So
about
good.
some of these players. Like, and this is why I always talk about Harry Kewell. I'm like, Harry Kewell played for Liverpool,
He was
could
good,
barely
man.
walk, and Rafa Benitez still put him in the starting 11 for the Champions League final because of his quality.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to, because you had a bit of a personal relationship with him, and when he went to Turkey, like, he was a big fucking deal.
He was a god, man.
He was a god.
Yeah.
Can you give me some of the behind the scenes of what it was like being around Harry in Turkey at that time?
Oh, it was just, you couldn't go anywhere without, I don't call it harassment, but, you know, a significant amount of attention on him from fans, obviously. And you know what the best thing about him? Humble as. Humble guy, man. Same like you and I. No different.
Really?
Yeah, just chill dude.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you know when you only see people on TV and you think like their life must be so different, like, you know, or their way of thinking must be so different. Nah, same.
Really?
It's phenomenal.
Just more attention.
I think the best, the best players that I've ever interacted with are really down to earth. So when Del Piero was here, just speaking to him and stuff, so down to earth. Guillermo Moore is, you know, 300 plus
Champions League winner. Yeah.
Like, so down to it. Like, nicest guy, you know. Harry, Timmy, all those guys in that national team setup. Schwarzer, like, nicest guy.
Really?
Nice. Bro, they're just so
Normal.
normal. No different. They're just kids, generally from humble beginnings, who are really good at something, went on, earned a great deal of money, played in the biggest stages, but at the end of the day, were just good human beings. And then you got the guys who I didn't have much to deal with, and I haven't come across too many of them, who are good, but not there. And they know that they're not there. So they pretend
That they're there.
that they're there.
Oh,
So they act in a way that those that are there don't act in that way. So you know what I mean? It was really interesting. It was a good eye opener for me.
That's fascinating, man. Now, living abroad at such a young age, particularly like football is very unique to that. Sport's very unique to that. You get thrown in situations not many other things in life could put you in, like living in Ankara at 21.
Yeah.
What sort of job's going to take you there, right? But what do you think are some of the benefits from those experiences, going out of your comfort zone, being in high pressure environments that you know, in some ways set you up for who you are now as well?
Oh, big time. And this is what I try to explain to people all the time. You know, it's all well and good to read all the literature and all the books in the world about this, that, and the other, and be an expert in your field. But there's nothing like real world, real life experience. You just can't. I've done both. It pales in comparison. You know, you could read about Muslims or Turkey or the history or their political system or anything about Turkey. If you don't live there,
Yeah.
I'm not interested in your theory.
Yeah.
Theory and reality can be very different things. So I've always, you know, entrenched myself anywhere I went. So I lived in Turkey. I learnt the language. It's pretty poor now. I've forgotten a lot of words, but I was there for 2 and a bit years.
So you'd emphasize trying to take on the language.
I wouldn't emphasize it, but you just pick it up.
You'd have to,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? So you just pick it up. When I first went there, not many players spoke English, and quite a few spoke French. A few African boys, a few girls from Belgium. I speak French. I spoke French for, you know, the first number of months that I was there. Yeah. I spoke a little bit of English, the broken English with some of the boys, but I could speak French fluently with my, 4, 5, 6 of my teammates. So it was easier to do it that way. I just think to have global experience is priceless. Essentially, no one can teach it to you.
You can't put a price on that, bro.
You can't. You have to go and experience it. So Turkey was a fantastic experience, and subsequent to that, being in other countries around the world was equally fascinating and fulfilling. Experiences, and I have the ability now to understand why people, all range of people, think the way they do, how they arrive to the conclusions that they arrive to, because of my experiences all over the world. Whereas
Amazing.
if you've just always lived in Australia, or it doesn't matter where you've lived, if you always lived in one place and you've gone somewhere on holidays or something like that, then you don't understand the dynamic and how it's arrived to be that way. And that disables you to an extent on your ability to understand why someone you might be disagreeing with, you might be agreeing with, you might be negotiating with, is thinking the way that they are, because you just don't get it. Like, I don't understand why. A lot of times, I understand exactly how they arrived there, or why, or what their upbringing's been, what that must have, how's that formulated the person, what environment they've grown up in. I might disagree with them, but I understand why they think the way they do, or why they've arrived at the conclusion they have.
Their culture. It's amazing to see other people's normal, isn't it? Like when you come from here or anywhere and you see someone else, the way they live and the way they do things, and to them it's normal, and to you it's very different.
Yeah.
That's what those experiences give you. It gives you that sort of well-rounded experience. But the other places you played in were Korea and Indonesia as well. China too. What was, I guess, that part of Asia like for you? That'd be very different, I can imagine, to Australia and Turkey.
Yeah. So I had a pretty good spread of different environments or cultures or whatever you want to call it. So post Turkey, Gold Coast briefly, and then China. Interesting. China, really interesting. I was there 2011. It's a country. I went back. I was in there in 2019, towards the end of 2019. Their development's unbelievable. Like the work ethic, the way they go about things. Really interesting. No one knew about Tiananmen Square.
Wow.
In my team.
Wow.
I'll never forget that, man. I was on the bus. It was like the anniversary. So I mentioned it. No, what are you talking about? What?
As in the Chinese players didn't know about it?
No idea.
Why?
And there were some international ones. Oh, a lot of censorship and stuff there.
Ah, really?
Yeah. I was shocked, man.
Holy!
I had a VPN and everything. I still couldn't find.
What's like that the equivalent of like Melbourne people not knowing the Sydney Harbour Bridge, or like?
I don't know. It's a pretty significant event in the history of the country. But yeah, so there was that. South Korea, really, really, like South Korea was the best country I lived in overseas, like lifestyle.
Really?
Oh,
it's
man.
funny. Rashid was on the podcast a few weeks ago. He played in South Korea and he loved it.
He loved it, huh?
Loved
That's
it,
sick.
man.
It's so good,
Thinks
man.
it was the people, the culture.
The nicest people in the world.
Yeah, he said everyone was like just
friendly, helpful. They won't rip you off.
And he was there in COVID and he said, you know what, man, I'm good here.
Yeah, they're good, man. Like that is a phenomenal society. So, and I had kids then. I had the kids there and stuff. So lifestyle wise, I can definitely say without a doubt that South Korea was the best lifestyle. Very high level of football as well. And Indonesia was interesting because you know what? In a way, it brought me back to how it was in Turkey. Conservative. The mosques ringing out 5 times a day. I was there with the kids and the family.
That's a crazy experience when you're in that. Hey,
it was. It's not a crazy experience. It was just an experience. Like I can't say I was used to it because last time, I was in that environment was a long time prior. But there was no culture shock or I was like, it's the same like living in Turkey. It's fine. Right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was good for the kids because the kids got South Korea, they got Indonesia, so it helps them with their global mindset or outlook. And they're only little now, but by the time they're teenagers and that, I think it will have a very positive
Effect.
impact on their life. Yeah.
For sure. Now, anyone that knows Bruce knows his business orientation and his view of life is, I would say, extensive for an athlete, because he's always had an open view of who he's going to be, what he wants to do, and always had a very productive and proactive life outside of the soccer field, which when we were playing, I would say was very unique. There wasn't a lot of people that weren't going home playing PlayStation, going home to the cafes, right? You were going home to do other things, study, etc. So I am going to go into this, but do you remember when we went, I think it might have been 2013, Jared Walsh, who at the time was one of the main voices in Adelaide. He still is probably the main voice in Adelaide across MCing and corporate speaking. But at the time, he was one of the main voices at Nova in Adelaide. And he actually used to do our ground announcements at Adelaide. And he started running a segment called The Pitch.
Oh, yeah.
You remember this? And anyway, for whatever reason,
I remember The Pitch.
I joked about it because he's bald. He was getting a hair transplant. He took a few weeks off. And no one else but me
put a hair transplant.
Well, it's just my humour to him. He's bald. But anyway, I ended up taking over the host of the segment for a few weeks, and I interviewed you. Do you remember that?
No.
You don't remember it, bro.
I remember doing The Pitch,
I'm gonna cut a clip in.
It's all a blur, bro.
I'm gonna cut a clip in for this so we can get to it. And so we are gonna.
Was that on the couch?
Yeah, it was on the couch.
In the office?
You're in your trackies as well. So that's what Bruce was like back then. But there's a lot of humour in there around the business aspect of what you do, because you were very proactive on it back then, and we emphasised it in that episode.
Yeah, right.
So I'm going to spend a bit of time on it. But before we do have some fan questions that come in.
Right.
And it's called the Lace 'em Up Quickfire 5. I've given it a name, folks. We've done this for a few weeks. We trialled it with Ryan Grant. It got some good feedback.
Yeah.
So we're now going to keep running with it.
I'm not as funny as Ryan Grant.
No, but essentially these are just questions from our listeners. Quickfire 5. It's just instinctive answers.
All right, let's go.
All right. Best player you ever played with?
People ask me that stuff all the time. I don't know, man.
Pick one. You got to pick one, bro. There's got to be one that made you better, made the team better.
Played with ever.
That you admired from afar. Like, how the F do they do that?
Doesn't matter how often I played with them.
No.
It was really good.
It's called the Quickfire 5 for a reason.
Yeah, I know. It's not quick at all. Can't you just edit and cut it?
Yeah, this is what happened in the pitch as well. There's segments where you said, can't you just edit and cut it? Maybe this isn't a good segment for you.
It's such broad. It's just unfair. Like, okay.
All right, give me a few names.
You know, it was really good. Obviously, Dukes was good.
Mark Viduka, yep.
Yeah, I didn't play with him all that often, but phenomenal. Harry, obviously. That's Socceroos. I can say club side. Karuska was good.
Yes, I throw Karuska up there to a lot of people.
He was good, man.
Right, people don't understand how unbelievable he was.
They don't. He was really good. Let's just stick with that.
Okay, done. Good.
Because that wasn't quick at all.
most unique place you've played football in? You played in
starting to be up there.
I was going to say Tashkent for me. It's a very weird place.
Well, it's an interesting place.
Interesting, yeah. Very hostile.
Yeah. We'll say Tashkent.
Tashkent, all right. This is an interesting one because you played with under a lot of people, but who was your best coach and why? This can be for getting the best out of you or just the most interesting you played with.
I'd say Giuseppe Postecoglou.
Good joy. All right, this is a good one. I may have had a bit of a say in this, but anyone played with Bruce, anyone knows Bruce, he was a right footer. But boy, did he score a lot of goals with his left. Why did you score more goals with your left than your right?
Did I?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there was a period, there was a year.
Give the people stats, be accurate, bro.
Well, yeah, very good point.
I don't know.
But there was a period, and I'll just jump into this before I give it to you. There was a period when you got the ball on the right-hand side of the box. The right-hand side of the box with your back to goal, and you turned onto your left and you beat a man and you had a shot. It was a goal. Guaranteed. Goal, training, game. It didn't happen all the time, as in you get those ball in that position, but you just had this swagger from that area that it just couldn't be stopped. The accuracy. Why did you have was it an emphasis to get your left foot better and it just started to dominate? Like, what happened there?
I don't know. I always use both feet. And I remember Pim Verbeek, ex-Socceroos coach, saying to me, you know what, sometimes when you're so proficient with both feet, it can actually be a detriment to you because you don't concentrate as much on your first touch because it doesn't matter to you.
Mm.
If you control it goes to the left, you just hit it with your left. Control goes to the right, you just hit it to your right. But you need to make that decision before the ball comes. Like, you know, you need to know when you're really left-footed, it's automatic.
Yeah.
Because you know for you to strike or pass the ball,
It has to be
it has to
perfect.
be on that side of your body.
Because you can't compensate.
You can't compensate.
Interesting.
So
Never thought of it that way.
right or left foot, man, for me it was that was just the same. I'm
Alright.
naturally right-footed. I'd never take a penalty with my left foot, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, my left was struck
Quality.
the ball well.
It was quality. All right. This is an interesting one. This is someone who must know you. Any stock advice for brewing investors?
Oh yeah, stick to exchange traded funds.
Oh, what are your thoughts of crypto? You're very against
ETFs.
cryptocurrency, aren't you?
I am. My brother spoke to me about crypto when it was about 8,000
Yeah.
coin, and now
Bitcoin.
it's bloody 50 or 60,000.
Wow.
But you know what? Everyone's got that story. Good luck to them.
But you're also a very well-educated man, which is why you are in a suit, director of football at Adelaide at the age of 34, 35, which is
34, bro. What
34,
are you giving me extra
sorry.
years for?
Well, you're going to be turning 35 at some point.
Next year.
But anyway, no, in all honesty, with the career of football and obviously with what you were trying to sort of build outside of football, did you dislike the lack of stability at times that football threw at you because you were ebbing and changing, particularly towards the end of your career as you're starting to try and create a path out of it, I guess?
A little bit, but you know what? It wasn't as destabilizing as the COVID times.
True.
Last year, like in this role, like that was like, it's still a precarious occupation.
Yeah.
You know, it helps build resilience, helps build a tolerance. Like I never get stressed.
Mm.
I reckon I've been stressed 2 or 3 days since I took on this role.
Really?
That's it, bro.
Why? Why? Just
Everything always works out, man.
are you the Dalai Lama or something?
No. There's I was speaking about this with someone yesterday. There's 2 ways to think about everything always works out. There's the people who don't do anything and are like, everything will be fine. And it never is.
Yes.
Because they haven't done anything.
Correct.
And then there's people who've done all the groundwork, work really hard, and deserve to be rewarded at some stage. Might not be today, might not be tomorrow, might not be in a month, might not be in a year, but it's coming. It always works out.
You know what? It's very true. Did completely agree. And I actually, this is why I'm not surprised with where you're at right now, because when we were playing together 10 years ago, as you mentioned, you always, whether you never really stated this, but just within your actions and knowing you and being around you quite a lot there, you definitely had an emphasis on networking and broadening your relationships outside of football.
Mm.
And I'm talking with successful business people in property, to finance, to politicians. I mean, well, that's another story, but like Bruce is very political with his relationships and obviously...
I'm not political.
Well, you're not political, but you're involved with a lot of political people. I mean, not too many people were catching up with people at the embassy in Indonesia,
yeah.
right? So, but why were you like that? Was it just your personality, or did you kind of,
It's just my personality. I get on with people naturally, and I enjoy hearing and understanding people's stories, where they've come from. I'm a people person.
do you recommend that to other footballers? Like, do you think it assists with football, or is it just personality wise?
It depends. If you're the really shy person who doesn't want to speak much and do much, then there's no point trying to push that person into, being a keynote speaker at a conference. So. But what I would say is, through sport, you get a very unique opportunity to meet a broad range of very, very interesting, very, very successful people, or unsuccessful people. There's a lot to learn from them too. I took the time to learn as much as I could off all of the ones that I did meet. It's pretty much as simple as that. And it's done genuinely. It's not done because one day I want to do this, so let me find out what they're doing. Or one day I need that person's help, so let me... No, I was in the middle of playing a football career. I had a genuine interest in how that person might have arrived to where they are, advice that they could give. I remember speaking to Stephen Lowy the week we won the grand final, and he said words to the effect of, you know what? It's not over he didn't say it's not over until the final whistle's blown or something basic like that. But that was the message, you know. Obviously, grand final was that weekend, et cetera, et cetera. They were all coming down to Adelaide for it, and it was very much like, you know what, it's grand final, only come around every so often. You got to live it every minute, every moment,
embrace it.
And like when a guy like that's taking the time out to have that discussion with you, like you listen to that. I thought about that like as I was walking out onto that pitch.
Really?
Yeah, actual, and like I can imagine there's a lot of people in all sorts of industries who'd love to have a chat with Stephen Lloyd. They don't have that opportunity. Obviously,
Correct.
through sport, I did. So that's just one
Example.
minuscule example, but there's thousands of them.
You actually opened my eyes up to that though, because I was quite young and naive to the fact that those relationships were there, and having those discussions with people in successful positions, how that could impact and shape your life. And I learned that actually from you, because I'm not saying that you weren't genuine in those engagements. You just had a lot more of those, and we would always joke about, you know, your sort of antics, because there was even periods where I think you might have been working 1 day a week at a financial firm or something like that, right?
PKF Adelaide.
Yeah,
firm.
but you've actually been quoted on saying this, and you're not going to remember this because it's a long time ago. But you were doing a bachelor's in something for Open Universities Australia, and you mentioned
business.
right. This is what you said, because you started playing professional quite young, and you're always around older players.
Yes.
And you mentioned before that you noticed that some of them had a lot of difficulty with transition.
Yeah.
And that was something you said,
remember that.
I don't want to have.
That's exactly what I thought.
You wanted to take life into your control.
Since I was like 25.
Yeah. So can you provide, not necessarily examples of bad transition, but the importance of having a healthy transition plan, or having an idea of, you know, this is going to end some point?
Yeah, I think obviously it's not just footballers, it's all athletes, I think. You know, to arrive to be a professional athlete, you've got to have some sort of illness to have the determination, desperation, selfishness, perseverance, all those assets that you really need to make it. You know, there's that, but what happens with a lot of them is they label themselves as a footballer, or a pole vaulter, or a basketballer, or whatever it might be, right?
You get bucketed.
It's like, no. Like, you're Jake Barkadesh.
Correct.
You just happen to play football. People don't get that.
Yeah.
I swear.
Yeah.
It's like an illness.
I didn't get that either.
They're like institutionalized.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you know, like soccer's great. I love it. I don't want to do anything other than this. But, you know what? I'm also interested in this. I'd like to find out about that. Like, there's benefit that comes with a balance. Why not explore that, you know? And I did see players, and I was on the PFA executive committee for a period, so you see all the people applying for hardship fund, and not that there's a truckload of them, but but a lot of times they're people you think are perfectly fine, but they're not.
Yeah.
And so, no.
Something's off here.
I need to be in control here.
Yeah.
Like, I need to have options. With options comes a certain amount of influence.
Correct.
Like, if you're pigeonholed into something, then you end up being the player that plays an extra year because you didn't have anything else to go to, and you're no good, and you finish your career and everyone's got a bad taste in their mouth. You get injured and you're so desperate that you need to find another club because you don't have anything else to fall back on. I didn't want none of that. And that's how it worked out in the end.
Yeah.
In the end, I'm like, you know what? I'm not really motivated to come to training every single day. So I'm just going to stop.
Did you find that when you started
other things to do?
When you started looking at other things to do, or having those different engagements or different conversations, that you're like, actually, I like this.
Yeah.
I can see that. Do you push your younger players towards that at Adelaide, given you've got a lot of youth, or not really?
I don't know if you can push it. The PFA takes a significant role in that. I try to advise them. I wouldn't say push. I try to advise them in the importance of doing something else. At the end of the day, like, there's not real money in the A-League. Yeah, there's the odd player, marquee, that's earning significant life-changing sums of money. But else, you're going to have to do something else at some stage anyway.
Yeah.
You know, and it shouldn't all be financially motivated anyway. If I was really financially motivated, I would have gone into finance. but you got to do what you enjoy doing. Obviously, that's football, but you got to find out what else you enjoy doing, because you cannot just enjoy doing one thing. It's not possible.
Yeah.
Like, humans are more sophisticated than that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just about finding what else you're passionate about.
It's funny because when you think about it, we players, and you were it at some point in your life, we define our success off soccer, which is just a man-made game with a ball. And a lot of the fundamentals of the game, of why you think you're good, are really actually personality traits within yourself. It's just soccer's like this vehicle of showing you, hey, you're pretty good at this because you're determined or disciplined, or you're willing to put in work or take on advice. All those things that are coachable or translatable into something else. And you don't know it until you do other things, which is, I kind of learned that the hard way, I guess. But we touched on your position as a director of football at Adelaide. It's no secret, and you stated it when you first went there, that this wasn't your necessarily plan A or option A to go into, because it probably wasn't top of mind, or the opportunity wasn't there. You were looking at working towards some other opportunities, weren't you, prior to this opening?
Yeah, I was. But it's all about, taking your chances when they come.
Would you say you're pretty young to be in this position, though?
I'd say so.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's not too many directors of football at 34 or 33 when you probably got hired in.
No, there's not. So, yeah, everyone gets a bit of imposter syndrome or whatever, but then you start to get some runs on the board. You got to believe in, again, this is transferable skills. Like, I never feel overwhelmed, or there's been heaps more stressful instances throughout life. Like, behind a desk, trust me, man. I say the players all the time. I'm like, being a player, that's the hardest job. This job's not hard, bro. Like, people like you to think their job's really hard. I'm not one of those people. You speak to people, they're like, oh, I'm so busy. This job's so challenging. Oh, is it? Why?
Yeah, break it down.
You're just not that good.
Maybe
your time management is poor. Like, people use it as like a medal of honor. It's so challenging. I'm doing this role. It's really busy. I'm like, well, it's actually just a job. Like, if I ever type in my email, no one cares. If you miss a pass in a game,
people care
a lot.
Yeah,
and they're going to tell you they care.
Kick it forward, Watto.
Like, do you know what I mean? The like, professional sport, not just soccer. Like, all professional sports are at such a high octane level. If you end up working behind a desk, there ain't no job.
That's it.
I don't care what no one says. You can be running BHP. There's a reckoning. That's called the AGM. It happens once a year.
Exactly. Pete, I said this the other week. I don't care what other people say. People in the corporate world who say, oh, I'm working for a shit boss. Oh, it's really hard at the moment. I'm not getting on with them. They're giving me so much responsibility. I'm like, yo, I get that. But try copying a spray from a coach.
No idea. And
or
I think
the public.
I'll just stop you there. I think that's why corporations who want to be the best often seek out professional athletes or former professional athletes to either speak to their staff, talk about high-performing teams, teamwork, what it means, all those sort of commercial, corporate buzzwords, like, because they get those people in because they've lived it. They're like, you need to get that and translate it to these people.
Correct.
Because you'd be surprised how many relatively low performers there are in the corporate world.
Yeah.
And you can be a low performer for a long time, because you might get a quarterly review, a biannual review, a remuneration review once a year, whatever it might be. Mate, in football, every day.
Every day.
You're missing passes of training,
Correct.
You're going to hear about it. You're not pressing on time, you're going to hear about it. The constant feedback loop. I say to people, like, that voice in your head that tells you you're bored, or you're excited, or this is really good, or what. You times it by about 100,000. You've got a sports person.
Correct.
During training, times that another 100,000.
Sometimes your coach doesn't even speak to you because your first touch is poor. Like,
no,
that's extreme, but that stuff happens. Like, they isolate you because you're not good enough.
I know.
And it's
like bro, in sport, it's like, contract's done, didn't perform, see you later.
Yeah.
Try fire someone in the private sector.
Yeah.
Try fire someone in the public sector, bro. You cannot. You can be a chronic underperformer, still got a gig.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different world, man.
It's a different. I'm still adapting to the lack of sophistication in that space.
Yeah.
Like, if you could translate what the best sport people give you on/off pitch into an office environment, mate,
it'd go through the roof.
it'd be unbelievable.
That's why I promote athletes when they work in sort of sales roles or those commission-based roles or even in any sort of corporate space. They don't realize the skill set they have, why they're an asset to an organization. And organizations haven't really caught onto it because they're still checking if you have degrees and stuff. I think it's starting to shift. But they're a huge asset to anyone, regardless. Yeah, because it was no secret you were actually going to go into Fox Sports. I remember flicking on my TV. I'm like, Bruce keeps just popping up on Fox Sports. He's on the couch with
I was
Cozzy.
at Fox for like 6 months.
I know, but that was going to be more permanent, right?
That was the plan.
And then
I think I left at a decent time because a lot of people
there's a lot of hardship
people,
there, which is a
lot
whole
of
other
hardship.
story. I mean, Simon Hill, how he's not in a media role right now is unbelievable. The voice of Australian football. But yeah, now you've worked in this role, director of football, because a lot of people who don't really understand the day-to-day responsibilities of that role or how you sort of run and influence the results on the field. But now you've been in it, do you see that critical to operating a football club for every team? Or do you think it depends on how it's...
No, I think you definitely need that role. It depends on what the vision of the club is. Like if they want a club that has sustained success on the high... Look, there's much bigger, much better clubs than ours with sporting directors who go through painful times. Having a sporting director doesn't guarantee success. But if you have a clear vision and goals and you want an independent thinking, rational human being instead of someone like, if you leave it all up to a coach, well, the coach, who's he looking out for? Club?
Yeah, no.
Or his job?
He's the first one gone.
He's the first one gone.
It's easier to get rid of one than 22.
So... you let the coaches run it, it's problematic. You bring a coach in, he brings his own players in, that coach leaves, those players are still there. New coach comes in, he's got how many times have you heard, it's not my team?
Oh, I had 5 coaches in 3 years in the A-League.
Next season we'll build the team.
Yeah, it's buying time, bro.
It's just fucked up. So you need for stability, for medium to longer term success, I think the role is critical and probably the reason why the majority of European clubs have sporting directors. So I think it's a critical role.
Do you influence
influencing results on the pitch? I don't believe so. I think that's all like for me. I don't like putting my fingers in too many pies. Like my role is gatekeeper for the club, philosophy, medium to longer term goals, succession plan. Every time we sign a player, we look at, well, if this guy's 17 and this other one's 27, and the 17-year-old might not be as good as the 27-year-old, they're in the same position. But you know what? In 1 or 2 years of game time, when this kid's 19, he's going to be as good as, if not better. Then you sign the kid,
Right.
Or you might say he needs 4 years. Let's sign the 27-year-old on 2 years, develop this kid for another 2 years, the youth team or whatever. And then as his contract rolls off, if we do our job properly and that kid's committed, he should be... There's all that
Discussion.
needs to happen, yep. And, I think you just got to do what's in the best interest of everyone. I get the sense sometimes people are like, he works for the club, he's just doing what's in the best interest of the club. So no. What's in the best interest of the player is also in the best interest of the club.
Correct.
There's no point in having a kid there who isn't going to play and just keeping him there, just in case maybe one day let him go. Let him go. If maybe he can go somewhere else and play. That's better for him. What's to stop you from bringing them back later? So look, I'm someone who takes a very neutral view on things. I can see all sides. I see the PFA side, I see the club side, I see the players side, and
It's because you've been across all positions,
I've been
though, right?
across it. But
That's
you see
why.
a lot of people who have been players and become coaches and almost forget what it's like to be a player.
Multiple. It's unbelievable. It's actually fascinating.
It's out of control.
It's ridiculous. It's
Or
like, do you remember what you were like in this position, and now you're talking to me like this or saying this?
I double check myself sometimes.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll call a player a player I've played with or that's currently playing or something, someone who's still a player.
Yeah.
And be like, this is the decision I'm making. Have I forgotten what it's like to be a player, or am I still thinking, like, is that a rational decision here? I just need to cross-check that I'm not losing myself here, you know? But yeah, I'm very honest. I'm very, I'm always looking in the mirror. What could I do better? But I think on-pitch results, mate, it's the coaches and the players.
But do you influence some of the signings? Because you're always at the face of those sort of press conferences and stuff, but you're having those discussions, or do you give that all to Carl?
Nah.
Yeah, that's
no point of my role. If I did
that's what I'm saying. So, right.
So yeah, it's I don't do anything unilaterally. I don't believe that the coaches would either. So we've got a really good relationship. So a lot of it's relationship management, relationship with the chairman, relationship with the CEO, relationship with the players, relationship with the coaches, relationship with the high performance and medical staff. It's, everyone's pulling in the same direction generally, but there's always pinch points everywhere. You got to manage that and get everyone still on the same team, going in the same direction. I think we've done that really well at Adelaide United, if I'm honest. And everything's done in a team-like environment. So when you talk about player signings, we have a football meeting every week. We basically go through every player every week. These meetings don't go for too long. It sounds like it goes for ages, but the meeting might go for 45 minutes every week. Touch on a few things, how the game was, who's coming up, what the injury, all these sorts of things. Who we're targeting for next season, who do we want to retain, how people are developing, all that sort of stuff, what's happening at the youth team level, all of that discussion's had. And when decisions are made, there's an overwhelming agreement from everyone there that we're happy to go in that direction. We're happy to sign this player. We're happy to give him 2 years. We're happy to give him 3. That's all done in unison, and between the CEO, myself, Carl, Ross as assistant, Ayrton as second assistant, Eugene as goalkeeper coach. Like, that's the football meeting. 6 of us every week. So, and you're speaking to the coaches every day anyway, but every week there's a meeting with an agenda. We go through everything, and that's the best way decisions are made. Like, I don't think unilaterally making decisions in a football club
doesn't work.
Like, you don't get a much more team-based
Yeah.
organisation than that. Like, it's all about the team. So to make unilateral decisions in that sort of an environment is hiding to nothing.
Tell you what, Bruce Djite, it's always fascinating talking to you. There's no mask on this man. I'm telling you, people, this is exactly what it's like going for a coffee with Bruce. You lose yourself in 45 minutes, 50 minutes talking about everything. Such an intelligent person, someone I always learn off, mate. It's been a pleasure having you on the Unlaced podcast, playing with you, obviously 10 years ago now, which is just insane. But, mate, excited to see what you're doing and where you're going to go and all that's going to happen in the future.
Thanks for having me on Unlaced podcast. It's actually not bad. It's really good, bro. Well done.
Thank you, brother. I'm going to cut that again, use that as a tagline for the show. That is awesome, bro.